Strike a match in midnight air. It's a fleck of dawn, a temporary sun. See how a room leans closer to its ember, how shadows soften, how worries run. Now let the flame dissolve into a sunrise. Let the horizon drink it whole, ask softly, without flinching. What if we could hold a star and keep the world consoled? Once, long before names, the universe learned a simple song. Two small hearts become one larger heart, and the difference sings as light. Fusion is that oldest hymn. Heat braided into being, hydrogen humming into helium, a lullaby for galaxies on cold and endless nights. We have always borrowed warmth from wood, from wind, from buried suns become stone. But there is a kinder fire waiting upstream, one that writes no smoke upon the sky, one that rises when we ask and rests when we are done. It's not stolen flame, not punished myth, a conversation with a star, and every answer kind. Listen, we do not steal fire from the gods. We befriend it, learn the patience in its pulse, the manner of its making. We trade our wires and magnets for a sunrise in a bottle, or a pearl of light squeezed until it glows. We promise to be careful, to heat, to gather, and to hold, and to set it down intact when the evening asks for snow. To get there, we must learn 3 small courtesies. No equations, only sense. Heat, the fervor that invites a meeting. Density, the crowd where partners find each other. Time, the hush that lets a handshake last. A sun is nothing but a promise kept long enough. On Earth, we keep it with craft and quiet daring, with chambers tuned like instruments, with light that measures light. Stars choose the easy path, gravity for free, a skywide pressure, billions of years to practice. Here we improvise. We spin a magnetic bowl and teach the fire how to circle. Or we lace a dozen lasers into a single spear and press a grain of fuel until morning fits inside it. The way a note can hold a choir if the hall is shaped just right. This is not a story of sudden miracles. It is a story of mending promises, of learning how to hush the leaks, how to listen while we heat, how to count our wins in steady watts instead of thunderclaps and headlines. A steady kindness scaled to cities that is the prayer beneath the solder and the steel. If it sounds like courage, it is. If it sounds like patience, it must be. Because the path from match to sunrise is walked in careful meters and in years. But look how the night already leans. How many hands are cupped around this ember? How many minds have learned its rhythm and keep time with the quiet ticking of a possible tomorrow? So come, stand near the little flame, let your breath be calm, your questions bright. We'll follow heat through hidden doors and watch 2 small hearts become one light. We'll meet the bottles that can cradle morning and the pearls that bloom at a whisper of command. We do not steal fire from the gods. We befriend it and learn to set a sun within our hands. Begin with a whisper older than fire. 2 small hearts approach, the space between them bristling with no. They carry like charges, proud and apart. Each nucleus a tiny citadel, each wall a shining wall of snow. But deep inside that winter stands a gate only the patient see. A narrow door called maybe, where the quantum winks, where particles borrow luck the way sailors borrow wind. And the world, briefly, lets impossible things agree. When the door gives way, there is no thunderclap, no drum, no fanfare on the hill. There is a soft accounting. A sliver of being is returned as brightness. A fraction of matter is paid back as heat. And the room grows warm without smoke or ash. 2 become 1, and the difference sings as light. This is fusion, the oldest lullaby the universe remembers. Hydrogen hums into helium, and the humming heats the dark. In cores of stars where gravity piles pressure like quilts on a winter bed, the no between neighbors thins, crowded close, jostled long, the chance door opens often. And dawn is minted coin by coin, day by day, spark by spark. Notice the paradox. The pieces are small, the piece is large. Tiny charges repel with stubborn grace, yet when they marry, what they surrender becomes a city's worth of warmth. Mass is promise, light is promise kept. Every sunrise is a receipt. Why do stars choose hydrogen and helium? Because they are simple hands with nimble fingers, the lightest steps upon the Coulomb hill. The wall that keeps them from each other is high, but not as high as for heavier kin. And gravity lends them climbing ropes. Weight is patience. Pressure is prayer, until the quantum gate says come in. On Earth, the stairway is steeper. The sky does not press for us. We must improvise our climb. Choose partners that are willing. Nuclei with a touch of generosity. Deuterium, a hydrogen with a heavier coat. Tritium, its rarer cousin with a longer, softer glance. Together they nod sooner, share sooner, fuse sooner, so the door called maybe opens wide enough to walk through. We are careful with names, because names are tools. We call the wall the Coulomb barrier, the handshake tunneling, the return sliver of matter, our light and heat. But you do not need the names to feel the sense. There is a hill to climb. And a shortcut through the hill the small can take, and when the journey ends, warmth remains. Think of it like music. Two notes played alone are straight and thin. Played together, they braid a third that neither carried. A harmony you can heat your hands by. Matter remembers it is made of music and releases the tune. But that is fusion's kindness. A choir from a pair, a lantern lit by agreement. But why not just ask ordinary hydrogen to sing for us here? Because the air around us steals its courage, because our rooms are not star hearts, because the no between neighbors is fierce at earthly calm. So we preface the duet. We warm the hall, gather the choir, lengthen the note. We make deuterium and tritium our first, most teachable song. Later, we may attempt more difficult verses, helium-3 in rare refrains, boron in bright ashless dreams. For now, we practice with a key that fits the lock. Here are the scales we must respect. Temperatures that redden numbers into metaphor. Densities that make distance modest, and moments long enough for chance to turn into custom. We will not recite those measures here. We'll feel them where they matter, in the pull between no and yes, in the hush before a handshake lands. Remember the star's advantage. It is heavy and patient, and nothing leaks from its lap. We, by contrast, live in a place that loves to cool. Our fire wants to wander. Our heat wants to leave. So as we ask two to become one, we also learn to keep the room attentive, to cradle the spark with fields or with light, to keep the door to winter shut while summer is being made. If this sounds like romance, it is. Two cross a distance they were born to respect. They meet where the rules bend without breaking. They give up a little of themselves to become something new, and what they give up keeps everyone warm. Hold this picture: a hill and a handshake. A no that becomes a yes by a quiet root. A fraction surrendered. A city lit. You now know what fusion is, not a machine, but a meeting, not a trick, but a treaty, not theft, but consent. And here is your one-line compass for the road ahead. In fusion, matter remembers it is made of music and releases the tune. We will spend the next minutes learning how to tune the hall, how to invite the crowd, how long to keep the chorus singing. A final thought before we step through the next door. A sun is a promise kept long enough. On Earth, we will keep that promise with care. We have the notes. We hear the melody. Now we must learn the rhythm, heat, squeeze, and hold, and keep the beat until morning fills the room. Every fire is a bargain with loss. You strike the match, and the wind takes its share. A star makes the same bargain, only better. Its secret is not a number on a chalkboard, but a rhythm. Heat, squeeze, and hold. 3 beats, 1 song. First beat, heat the fervor. Warm the dancers until hesitation melts, until the no between charged partners blurs into maybe. Too cool, and the crowd is polite, they bow from a distance and never meet. Raise the temperature, and chance grows teeth. The gate called maybe swings more often on its oiled hinge. Second beat, squeeze the crowd. An empty hall writes quiet music. Pack the room, and hellos multiply. If there are too few guests, even brave steps go to waste. If there are many, 1,000 possible pairs, try their luck at once. Density is simply proximity made patient. Close enough, long enough, for winks to turn to handshakes. Third beat, hold the patience. Close the doors to drafts. Keep the warmth from fleeing. A pot left uncovered boils its promise into the air. A bucket with holes can never fill. Infusion time is the lid on the kettle. Hold the heat and the crowd together long enough and the steam sings. That is the tightrope. To cool it yawns. Too thin it dwindles, too leaky it leaves. Even success sheds little thieves, glimmers that slip away as light, eddies that carry heat to the walls, specks of ash that brighten and steal, impurities acting like mirrors that glow and forget to return the favor. We do not curse these losses. We learn their habits, tame their roots, stitch the seams, hush the drafts, invite the flame to stay. And how shall we know we've kept our promise? There is more than one way to count. First, a modest ledger. Does the fire inside the pot return more warmth than we fed the pot itself? Call that the scientist's smile. The plasma's own balance in the black. Next, a sterner audit. Does the whole kitchen, heaters, pumps, magnets, nerves, receive less than the fire gives back? Call that the engineer's nod. The plant is a single heart. Finally, the worldly book. Can this warmth compete with friends? With wind, with water, with sunlight's steady wage and power our lives at a price that lets hope spread? Call that the citizen's cheer. These are not moving goalposts. They are steps on a hill. You reach the first and glimpse the second. You crest the second, and a plain of homes opens for the third. No equations are needed to feel the slope beneath your feet. So, remember the rhythm. Heat enough to dare. Squeeze enough to meet. Hold enough to matter. Every device we will visit from here, magnetic bottles, pulsed cages of light, pellets pushed to sunrise, is a different way of keeping time with the same 3 beats. A final stitch for the pocket. A sun is a promise kept long enough. Our work is to keep that promise on Earth, to warm the hall, gather the crowd, and hold the note until morning stays. Picture a halo of soft blue ghost light, lightning remembering its manners. That's the heart of magnetic confinement. We aren't caging a star so much as persuading it to dance in a ring. 2 magnetic winds become rails the plasma can't help but follow. A long-way lane circling the donut, and a crosswise belt that keeps the dancers from drifting. In the language of engineers, they're the toroidal and poloidal fields. Together, they braid into a helical track. And charged particles trace those spirals again and again, held away from the walls by geometry with purpose. Inside that ring, something delicate happens. The plasma discovers a calmer mode of living. Above a certain threshold, the edge quiets, turbulence folds its ragged wings. And a pressure pedestal grows like a seawall the fire builds for itself. Confinement improves, the heat stays home. But edges have moods, and sometimes they dream of sudden flares. Those are edge-localized modes, brief tempests that kick heat toward the wall. If a star in a ring is to stay polite, the rim must learn new manners. That is where the craft begins. We build a hearth for ash in excess. A diverter at the bottom of the ring guides spent particles and helium embers to a safe landing, like a steady exhaust for a roaring forge. The stones we choose can take the stress. Tungsten armor, where the heat will fall. Perhaps even liquid metal coatings that flow and self-heal. And when the edge shows signs of rage, we don't answer with hammers. We answer with whispers. We lace the field with resonant magnetic ripples. So a single dangerous burst becomes a fizz of harmless releases. We sculpt the magnetic meeting point into a snowflake so heat is spread like butter on warm bread rather than splashed in a single spot. We paste the plasma with tiny pellets, frozen pearls that coax many small relaxations instead of one rude shout. Edge control is not an act of force. It is a conversation with weather. The Tokamak, our elegant ring, has a Baroque cousin, the Stellarator, where tokamaks rely on a large current flowing through the plasma itself. Stellarators twist the rails with external coils so the core can stay quieter. It's as if the conductor steps off the stage and the score writes itself into the hall. With less current driven through the fire, the plasma's temperament calms. Sudden disruptions grow rare. Steady operation becomes more natural. The price is complexity. Coils that swoop and curl like metal calligraphy, assembled with the precision of clockmaking. But when tuned, the Stellarator composes a long, serene note that a power grid might one day love. Then come the new hands that hold the ring. High-temperature superconducting tapes. They carry rivers of current without complaint, letting magnets grip tighter than before. Stronger fields matter because they are firmer hands. They fold the same temperature and pressure into a smaller device, like cupping a candle, so the flame stands tall. The vision shifts from stadium castles to slender cathedrals. A compact, high-field shepherd, Tokamak, or Stellarator could reach star temperatures sooner, with less steel and more finesse. In fusion, design is destiny. In colder wires carrying bigger dreams, bend that destiny toward us. Feeding and steering the fire is an art of gentle hands. At the rim, gas puffs will do. But to nourish the core, we send frozen pellets skimming inward like brief hailstorms of fuel. We push currents without a physical cord. Neutral beams enter, become charged, and confer their momentum. Radio waves at carefully chosen frequencies nudge electrons and ions, until a self-driven bootstrap current sings along. The shape of that current matters. Profiles tuned with care keep the plasma stable like a violin string set to pitch. Let the profile wander, and the note grows scratchy. Quiet hand on the bow keeps the note pure. Of course, we must see what we're doing. Plasma can't be touched, yet every vital sign can be read. Scatter a tiny flash of light and learn its temperature. Parse its colors to learn what impurities drift and how the flows run. We reconstruct brightness patterns as if performing X-ray poetry, mapping where the fire breathes in and out. A star with no beating heart still has a pulse. Diagnostics become the stethoscopes of an invisible patient. Measurement is the leash of understanding. What does the scorecard say? The notes are getting longer and clearer. Plasmas and rings are reaching higher temperatures and pressures for longer spans. The edge storms are being coaxed into manners. And the places where heat lands are being armored and shaped to cope. The Stellarator's serenity is maturing. The Tokamak's power is being tamed. High-field magnets are rewriting scale, folding a sunrise into a smaller room. We haven't caged a star, we've taught it to linger, and that is the promise. Magnetic confinement now holds within reach. Not theft, not chains, but choreography. A ring, a twist, a field drawn firm. A geometry we ask a star to trust. We do not cage a star, persuade it to dance in a ring. In the next act, the ring becomes a cage of light, and a different art takes the stage. Lasers that try to light a sun in a single breath. In a room so quiet, you could swear the light itself is listening. A diamond bead waits in the dark. It's no larger than a peppercorn, but it holds a careful winter. Inside sits a flawless frost of fuel. Deuterium and tritium laid down in a layer so smooth that even a whisper would count as a blemish. Around that frost is a shell of ultra-pure carbon, diamond, polished to a mirror that has never seen a fingerprint. If you can picture that, you already speak the artisan's language of fusion. Patience, polish, and balance. Here is the first surprise. We do not shove this seed with hands. We light the room around it. In inertial confinement fusion, the push comes from light itself. Sometimes we aim the laser beam straight at the capsule. The outer skin flashes to plasma and peels away like steam from a kettle. That outward peel is a rocket push in reverse, sending the rest of the shell racing inward toward the center. Other times we build a tiny metal lantern, a whole room the size of a grain of rice. We pour laser light into that lantern, and it glows with X-rays that bathe the capsule evenly from all sides. We don't touch the fuel. We create an environment that persuades it. That's the heart of indirect drive. Make the room sing, and the seed will dance. Everything now is symmetry. Implosion is a race with rebellion, because nature loves to wrinkle a falling surface. When something heavy pushes on something light, small ripples can bloom into rips. Collapsing sphere loathes a seam. So the laser pulse is not a single shout, it's a choreography. A gentle shock to start the collapse. A pause to let the pressure settle. Then a stronger drive to carry the shell inward faster than instability can grow. If we do it right, the inner core, the hot spot, warms first, like a matchtip lighting the log that surrounds it. If we do it wrong, the core tears, heat escapes, and the moment passes. And then comes the quiet thunder we actually seek. The very first fusion reactions fling energetic alpha particles into the core. Those alphas don't fly far. They deposit their energy locally, reheating the place that made them. The spark feeds the spark. It's called self-heating, and it is the difference between a firework and a flame. Ignition is not a bonfire. It's a whisper that learns to shout. You may have heard that a laboratory shot has crossed a threshold. Ignition achieved. It's worth saying clearly what that means and what it doesn't. In the physicist's language, ignition means the fusion energy emerging from the capsule exceeds the laser energy that actually reached it. The energy the fuel could feel. That is a real milestone, hard-won and beautiful. But the wall plug story, how much electrical power the facility drew from the grid to make those lasers sing, remains larger. Turning a single exquisite success into reliable, repeated power is another mountain entirely. We will get there only by turning thunder into rhythm. Rhythm means repetition. A power plant cannot fire twice a day. It must fire many times each second, reliably, for years. That demands factories for joules, automated target lines that can grow flawless cryogenic ice, wrap it in diamond, and deliver each capsule to the exact center of a chamber with the grace of a needle threading itself. It demands lasers that don't merely blaze bright, but do so efficiently, with diode-pumped systems that convert electricity to light with minimal waste, again and again. It demands chambers that heal between beats, gas fills that tame debris, sacrificial shields that protect optics, clever geometries that let light in and heat out without scarring the mirrors we rely on. There is also the matter of fuel. Tritium is precious. Any serious design must learn to breed it, letting neutrons born in fusion slip into blankets of lithium that give tritium back. In this way, the plant becomes a gardener of its own future, spending fuel and growing it in the same breath. None of these tasks are as dazzling as a time-stretched laser pulse chasing itself across a sphere, but they are the steady work that transforms a spark into a livelihood. And because we're human, we don't bet everything on one road. When the straight path ices, mountains offer switchbacks. There is shock ignition, where we add a late, sharp drumbeat to the pulse. One clean spike meant to kick the core hotter without overcrushing the shell. There is fast ignition, a two-act play in which we first compress gently, then drive a separate, ultra-intense beam like a spear straight into the heart, asking for less symmetry overall, but far more precision and timing. There is magnetized target fusion, where we thread a weak magnetic field through the fuel before the squeeze, letting that field hold heat in place a heartbeat longer and lower the demand on brute force. Each of these routes explores a different trade. Symmetry for timing, timing for efficiency, efficiency for tolerance. Each of them is a chance to widen the window where a laboratory spark can become an everyday flame. How do we know a shot has worked? We listen to the light the way doctors listen to a chest. Capsule's X-ray glow carries news of temperature and shape. Neutrons whisper how many fusions happened and how hot the core grew. The time profile of the signal, the way it rises and decays, tells whether self-heating truly took hold or if the flame was fed only from outside. Over time, a story emerges. Better symmetry, cleaner pulses, shells that survive just long enough to make the most of their fall. You may not handle the detectors or align the optics. But if you are following this, you are reading the same story the scientists read without a single equation. It's also fair to ask a practical question that hovers behind the poetry. Why diamonds? Because the shell must be both strong and perfect. Diamond stiffness helps resist the earliest stages of wrinkling, buying the hotspot precious micro-moments before instabilities bloom. The cryogenic DT ice must be smooth at the scale of thousands of atoms. Any bump becomes a seed for chaos. This is one of those quiet places where craft matters as much as theory. An imperfect capsule can ruin a perfect pulse. A perfect capsule can redeem a pulse that was merely very good. And the lasers, why not simply turn them up forever? Because the capsule must absorb the right light at the right time. Too hot, too early, and the shell blows apart before momentum can carry it inward. Too cold, too late, and the core never crosses the threshold, where alpha particles can take over the heating. The pulse shape is a score for an orchestra with no conductor. Every beam must play its part with sub-nanosecond timing. Every mirror must hold alignment. Every optic must survive the blast and sing again on the very next shot. If you enjoy the thought that engineering can be poetry, you have found your instrument. So what did the milestone shot truly teach? That self-heating works on Earth, that a whisper can learn to shout inside a beat of winter wrapped in diamond, that the map we drew, implosion, hotspot, avalanche, matches the country we walked. From here, the questions turn from is it possible to how often, how efficiently, how affordably. That is not a dimming of wonder, is a deepening. Making a miracle once is a headline. Making it daily is a civilization. If this feels like a lot, take a breath and recognize the distance you've traveled. You now know why we sometimes strike the capsule directly and why we sometimes light a lantern around it. You know why symmetry rules and how wrinkles rebel. You know what ignition means in the language of physics and why power asks for a different vocabulary. You know that tritium must be grown, that lasers must be efficient, that chambers must heal, that alternative paths, shock, fast, magnetized, are not distractions but experiments in mercy. A sunlit has blinked and a room has held its breath. The next step is to ask for rhythm. Ignition is a spark. Power is a rhythm. Somewhere in that rhythm sits a quiet promise. Air without smoke, oceans without fever, lights that come on when we ask and go off when we sleep, owing nothing to the buried past. We do not steal fire from the gods. We befriend it patiently, in diamonds and thunder. Next, we shall go from cages of light to a different craft. How we measure the fire without touching the flame. How we learn, shot by shot, to let a spark keep time. There are many ways to coax a dawn. When the straight road ices over, climbers do not curse the mountain. They change their angle, their rhythm, their shoes. Fusion is the same. If one path stalls, we look for switchbacks, for quieter winds, for a gentler way to invite the sun indoors. Not the steady silver donut, not the diamond-wrapped implosion. Other ways. Hybrid ways. Side doors and wild paths where cunning replaces brute force, where timing holds the key. Magnetized target. First, make a smoke ring of fire. A warm, magnet-threaded puff of plasma. Not yet a star, but dreaming. Around it, build a moving wall, a whirl of liquid metal, or a choir of supersonic plasma jets racing toward the middle. Do not smash, converge. Do not shout, harmonize. When the liner cups the ember from all sides, pressure rises like a held breath, and the field inside whispers, keep the heat a heartbeat longer. Velvet glove, heavy drum, a soft hammer with a hard intent. In that instant between rush and rest, the seed remembers the song of the core. Field reverse dreams. Launch 2 rings at once, twin halos of current and light. Let them meet and merge, the way smoke rings kiss and become one. A pulse, then another. Rhythm is a tool, not a flaw. Heat with beams that arrive like arrows of summer, stiffen the shape, keep the orbit neat. Turn each beat of compression into a verse of flame. If the fire comes in pulses, catch it as it leaves transform the charged ash into current directly. No kettle, no steam, just motion folding into motion. Electricity written in the handwriting of alphas. Zeta pinch. Lightning taught to hold its breath. Thread a fierce current through a slender column of plasma. Watch the self-made magnetic embrace tighten, a fist of light closing around its own wrist. Lightning loves to curl and kink but shear the flow, give speed a gradient like wind over grass, and the wriggles smooth. The column sings one note. No cathedral of coils, no iron crown, the squeeze is homegrown. The bottle is the bolt. Teach the thunder to hum a steady bar, and for a precious moment it remembers how to be a bottle of dawn. Slingshots to sunrise, projectile and impact. Take a target engineered like a poem inside a pearl, and strike it with a single, perfect stone. Not brutality, but choreography. Shockwaves that meet in private. A hush at the heart where pressure and temperature greet each other by name. Projectiles are cheap. Repetition is honest. Hardware can learn a groove. What must be married is speed and sameness, so every throw rings the same hidden bell. Aneutron wishes. Quiet fuel with a stubborn lock. Some fires make almost only helium, little to no hard rain of neutrons. Proton and boron, a shy pair that, if convinced, Give their energy to charged particles we can gather like apples. No scarred materials, no constant healing of walls. Capture the motion directly in fields and grids, kinetic to electric, with a shorter cable to reality. But the lock is tight and the door stiff. It asks for higher warmth, for patience against radiative thieves. So we answer with longer embraces, clever heating that lifts the right dancers first. And engines designed to listen to Alpha's song. How to read the map, not the salesman. Breakeven is a family name. First, the scientific moment, when the fuel gives back more than you poured into the fuel itself. Then the engineering moment, when the machine earns more than it drew from the wall. At last, the economic moment, when a million miracles in a row can pay tonight's wages. Ask about repetition, can it pulse all day? Ask about efficiency, how much of your push becomes flame? Ask about scars, how fast do parts tire? Ask about fuel, do you grow your tritium or pluck boron from the hills? Ask about quiet, what do neutrons write into the steel, and how will you read it back out? A single miracle is a headline. A million identical miracles is a power plant. Why many paths are a promise, not a problem. Because each design wrestles a different bottleneck. Breakthroughs cross the aisle like good gossip. Magnets from one dream crown the next. Optics from lasers coach the slingshot's aim. Control software learned on one lightning bottle tames a ring in another house. If one road floods, another dries. If one path blooms, its seeds ride the wind. And if you have followed this switchbacking hike without a single equation, you are walking like a chief engineer now. It's balancing grace and grit, asking the questions that matter. The mountain does not shrink because we chose a gentler grade. It becomes climbable together. So hold this as we turn the page. From pistons of plasma to smoke rings that merge. From lightning that learns to linger to slingshots that sing. From quiet fuels to honest scoreboards, these side doors are not detours. They are ramps to the same sunrise. We have learned to light sparks in many dialects. Next, we learn the pros of power. Walls that do not tire. Blankets that grow fuel. And the steady art of turning a blink of starfire into an everyday hum. There are many ways to coax a dawn, and we will take them together. A power plant is a poem that must also pay rent. Say it softly at the gate of morning where a jar of starfire hums behind high fences, and the air smells faintly of metal and rain. Inside, a storm you cannot touch. Not thunder, not lightning. Neutron rain, fine as flour, fast as thought, sandblasting steel, whispering. Are you sure? Are you sure? Each grain knocks a lattice off balance, plants helium confetti in hidden rooms. Makes strong metals breathe and swell like bread that rose too long. We learn to love the weather we cannot change. We answer it with armor that heals. Tungsten skins that sip heat and refuse to blush. Steels taught to forget their scars. Ceramics that split a crack into a family of endings. We trade toughness for grace, ductility for endurance. Until the wall is not a shield but a teacher, taking the lesson and standing one day more. But armor is not enough. The bottle must grow its own flame. Tritium is a shy guest. It will not be mined for long. It lives and leaves in a human lifetime. So we wrap the heart with a living blanket. Lithium pebbles, liquid metal rivers, molten salts like amber light. Neutrons arrive as messengers. The blanket answers by making the rare ingredient and by carrying heat outward, where turbines are waiting with open hands. The blanket has its moods. Liquid metals slow in magnetic dreams. Salts test the patience of pipes. Chemistry writes riddles on the margins. We learn to count the tritium the way a lighthouse counts its flashes, not with fear, but with discipline. Keep it where it belongs. Know where it is at dusk and dawn. Let nothing stray unnoticed into night. Heat is a river and money is a mill. From star core to socket, the path must be clear, sometimes steam. It's faithful, sturdy, turning big wheels with a farmer's confidence. Sometimes helium or supercritical CO2. Sleek new gears that love higher temperatures, where efficiency rises like a kite on a steady wind. But only if the walls agree. Only if the armor sings the same note at 700 degrees as it did at 400, year after year. Who fixes a star you must never touch? Hands that never enter, robotic wrists, telepresence eyes, cassettes that slide free like a book from a shelf. Capacity is a quiet river called uptime. Downtime is a thief of songs. So we design with future grief in mind. Rails, ports, clear lines of escape. So a tired part can leave the cathedral without breaking stained glass. Where does the first barrel come from? You cannot brew bread without a starter. Early on, the seed tritium arrives from elsewhere. A efficient neighbor, a careful harvest, just enough to teach the blanket how to be generous. Then the loop closes, and the plant feeds itself like an orchard that keeps a few apples for spring. Now open the ledger. Not to slay the dream, but to make it stand taller. Capex, the cathedral's first stones and the cranes that place them. Cadence, how quickly you can repeat a miracle until it becomes a method. Capacity factor, how often the light is truly yours, not a promise on paper, but a hum in the wire. The first of a kind is always a long song. Second, 10th, 50th begin to rhyme. This is how miracles become normal. Factories for magnets, shipyards for vacuum vessels, digital twins rehearsing every bolt before the bolt exists. And remember, the balance of plant is most of the book. Turbines, pumps, cooling towers, switch yards that whisper at dusk. Plasma earns the cover, but the index is written by pipes and bearings. Treat them as poetry too. Fusion sells more than watts. A plant that runs hot can forge green steel. Teach ammonia to carry summer into winter. Split water into hydrogen on days without wind. Push fresh water inland like a good tide. It can warm a city's bones in January, while the river beside it steams like tea. Waste. We are honest. Our story has activation, not ashes. Metals that have listened to neutron rain too long and must rest decades, not millennia, until they are quiet again. So we choose alloys that age into something we can hold, that can be reborn as brackets and rails in plants yet to be named. Safety is the art of counting. Every gram of tritium a known address. Every path guarded by traps and filters, so that what is light and eager remains where it does the most good. The best safety is designed in, so ordinary days stay ordinary. How does one miracle become a franchise of dawns? By shrinking the miracle into modules, by teaching supply chains to sing the parts in harmony, by training hands that like neatness and night shifts, by rewarding uptime more than headlines. This is the craft, to make the sunrise repeatable. What milestones matter? Plasma that holds for hours at plant conditions? A blanket that breathes while sending steady heat? A closed tritium loop that balances like a baker's scale? A Brayton cycle that purrs at design temperature? Maintenance practiced until it looks like dance. Then, not a prototype, but a workday. And after that, many. Do not feel small. You are included. If you have ever kept a promise, you understand capacity factor. If you have ever fixed what you could not replace, you understand remote maintenance. If you have ever learned a recipe by doing it twice, you understand Noach is kinder than Fohawk. A power plant is a poem that must also pay rent. We will keep the rhyme of physics, mass into light, storm into warmth, but we will balance the books with discipline and grace. And when someone, years from now, boils tea with a kettle warmed by a caged dawn, they will be reading your handwriting in the steam. Hold the dream, count the bolts. Name the rivers of heat. Teach the blanket to bear, the wall to forgive, the ledgers to sing in black ink. There are many ways to coax a morning. This one asks for patience, craft, and company. Bring all three. And let's make the sunrise pay, so it can stay. Energy is the permission slip for possibility. Say it aloud the way a city breathes, the way a hospital's pulse does not ask the weather, the way a night train hums even when the wind forgets. We do not worship power, we ask it to keep its promises, to make warmth without smoke, motion without sorrow, and light that does not bargain with the sky. Do not crown a single source, make a braid. Let sunlight paint the day and wind comb the hills, and under that bright chorus let a quiet bass note hold. Fusion is not a rival to the sun that strikes our roofs. It is the steady hand that catches time when clouds arrive. The midnight anchor that does not tug the tide. A grid is a living river, swells at supper and thins at 3 a.m., freezes in February and dozes in June. To steer such water, you need both bursts and bearings. Panels that sparkle, turbines that turn, and a furnace that can hum on the hours when the world is most itself. Pair the fickle with the firm, and you get a kinder map of time. Industry asks not only for electrons, but for heat that bites. Steel that glows, cement that sets, glass that flows like honey. These are fires that learn by holding. Give a mill a clean flame that does not cough. Give a kiln a breath that carries no ash. And the beams of a bridge can be poured in a future that does not smell like yesterday. Let fusion's high, steady temperature teach ammonia to remember summer. Let green hydrogen climb the ladder to e-fuels, so ships and jets can cross their necessary oceans without leaving a blue bruise behind. Water is the oldest need and the newest fear. A shoreline plant with patient heat can make an inland river out of salt. Not a miracle, a practice. Not a headline, a habit. Desalination paired with duty. Brine tended. Ecosystems kept whole. Farms forgiven for rain that came too late. When energy is certain, thirst becomes a problem with tools. There are miles that wires will not win. Cargo crossers and cloud-high wings ask for fuel you can hold, energy dense enough to fold a map, electrolyze, synthesize, and stitch hydrogen into carriers that travel well. Ammonia for ships, kerosene for sky. Ports where cranes write alphabets of steel. Let fusion power teach oceans to whisper and not wheeze. Cities sleep best when someone stays awake. Ward lights that never flicker. Subways that trust their timing. Servers that keep the world's letters safe while their authors dream. District heat curling from a plant like tea steam in winter. Power that does not glance at clouds before it promises a breath. Reliability is kindness, scaled. Development is not a speech, it is a socket that always works. Energy poverty is time poverty. Hours spent hauling water or fuel are hours stolen from tomorrow. Dense power with a small footprint lets towns grow up instead of out. Lets classrooms glow after sunset. Leapfrog without smoke and skip straight to the steady chapter. Honesty keeps trust. Fusion will not be spotless, but it will be cleanable. There's no chain reaction to run away, no ash to haunt 100 lifetimes. Just metals that listen to neutron rain and must rest until they are quiet again. Tritium accounted like a ledger that loves neatness, barriers that treat ordinary days as victory laps. Responsibility is part of the watt. Cost is not the enemy. It is the editor that makes the book readable. The first of a kind is a solo, expensive, brave, and long. The 2nd, 10th, and 50th learn the harmony. Modules repeat. Supply chains remember. Digital twins rehearse bolts that do not yet exist. Price bends to patience, and cadence turns miracles into methods. Pay attention to the measures that matter. Capacity factor has kept promises. Uptime as quiet applause. Heat to work as craft, not wish. What does success look like up close? A pilot that runs at plant conditions for hours, not in a stunt, but on a schedule. Blanket that breathes while it breathes out steady heat. A closed tritium loop, balanced like a baker's scale. Turbo machinery purring at design temperature. Maintenance rehearsed until it looks like grace. Not a prototype, a workday. Not an exception, a calendar. And what is it for? Finally, in the grammar of lives? For steel that does not shame its sky, and cement that forgets to smoke? For water that arrives on time, even when the clouds are busy elsewhere? For ports and planes that move the world's stitches without fraying the fabric? For nights where hospitals and homes trust the same heartbeat? For classrooms that do not end at sunset? For winters warmed without regret? Do not feel small. You are included. If you have ever kept a promise, you understand baseload. If you have ever cooked for others, you understand industrial heat. If you have ever carried a bucket up a hill, you understand water's worth. If you have ever fixed something so someone else could rest, you understand reliability. If you have ever taught what you learned, you understand scale. Say it again so it stays. Energy is the permission slip for possibility. Fusion is not a throne to worship, but a tool to share. Let wind and sun keep their songs. Storage be the drum that counts. Let this new fire be the low, steady note that turns weather into music, a bass line under a renewable choir. Then bridges will rise without smoke, and ships will cross without grief. And the thirst of cities will be answered by practice and not prayer. What is fusion for? For giving time back. Time that would have been burned into fumes. Time that can be spent on care. For letting planning outrun panic and craft outrun noise. For a civilization that wants to stay curious without leaving a scar. When energy is clean and certain, plans become possible. When plans become possible, futures learn to speak. And when futures learn to speak, the present learns to listen. We did not steal fire, we befriended it. Now let's give it good work. If a headline promises a sun in a bottle by next year, what will you ask in the next 10 seconds? Not to dim the ember, but to keep it. Hope is a lantern. Questions are the glass. We can cradle both. We can cheer and still check the clock. There are 4 gates every breakthrough must pass. Shot, shift, string, line. Say them softly. They are the rungs of a real ladder. Shot is the spark that proves the story can begin. Pulse that behaves as physics foretold. Diagnostics in chorus, not solo. Numbers with error bars, not exclamation points. Repeat once, twice, and call it what it is. Proof of principle, not the power bill paid. Shift is the moment a stunt becomes a schedule. It's not one bright note, but a bar, a phrase, a song you can sing on Tuesday and again on Thursday. Longer holds, cleaner starts. Graceful failure when the wind leans wrong. The machine begins to shrug and say, of course. String ties subsystems into a single sentence. Core and blanket. Heat and hands. Fuel found, counted, closed. Power leaves the heart and meets a turbine that smiles. Even partial, even modest, an integrated loop is a rehearsal for a real day. Line is the day a miracle hires a payroll. Vendors named, factories warming to their tasks, standards that travel from drawing to dock, insurance that nods, a bill that can be done again and again until the calendar no longer bows to luck. If the gates are in sight and the path is honest, why do years slip like tides? Because discovery time is not delivery time. Labs reveal what nature allows. Industry proves what people can afford. Materials must learn to survive whether they have never seen. Supply chains must be grown like orchards, not conjured like rabbits. Regulations must be written for things that did not exist last winter. Success widens ambition. More heat at the outlet, quieter tritium books, friendlier maintenance on a midnight shift. Dates move because reality is being learned, not dodged. When a press release gleams, carry a pocket lens. 5 questions turn fog into weather. Which Q did you beat? Is it Q plasma? Energy return from the fuel itself? Or Q engineering, the honest whole plant ledger? Green flag, both are named, both are faced. Red flag, one number out of context, shouted from a rooftop. How long did it last, and how often? Seconds are a spark. Minutes are a mood. Hours are a habit. Green flag are statistics, not highlight reels. A calm plot with many points. Red flag, a single firework and a silence after. What fuel did you use, and what shadow follows? Deuterium and tritium today, easier lock, neutron storm, quieter fuels tomorrow, stubborn locks, gentler walls if we earn them. Green flag or frank talk of breeding, handling, metals that must rest. Red flag, tritium as a rumor, and activation as a footnote. What was integrated? Did heat leave the cathedral? Was any of it turned into useful work? Did a loop close, even at small scale? Green flag. Parts in conversation, core to blanket, blanket to cycle, cycle to grid. Red flag. A plasma glamour shot, and the balance of plant left off stage. Who checked the math? Peer review that bites. Data another lab can touch. It's independent eyes that agree or argue in print. Green flag, names, journals, preprints, test beds. Red flag. Proprietary where the proof should live. Now set your watch to honest clocks. Near term is the season of ours. Ours at plant-like temperatures, ours with steady flows, ours with controls that yawn at daily drift. First heat loops that carry warmth out of the heart and hand it to a small turbine that purrs. Materials testbeds reading, writing, reading again under neutron weather. Midterm is the season of pilots, a modest station that makes real heat on purpose and on time. A partial fuel loop that counts every gram like a lighthouse counts flashes. Maintenance by telepresence practiced until it looks like dance instead of surgery. Far term is the season of firsts that become seconds. First of a kind plant that sells power and sleeps through storms. And the second, the 10th, the 50th. Costs learning to slope down, uptime learning to sing. This is how miracles become normal. Repetition teaches grace. How do we keep hope sharp without turning it into hype? We celebrate slope, not slogans. We compare apples to apples, plasma to plasma, plant to plant. We credit the ensemble, not only the soloist, magnets and blankets, exchangers and valves. The quiet genius of maintenance that keeps Tuesdays ordinary. We keep the orchestra, not crown a king. Fusion braids with wind and sun, with storage and fission, with thrift and design. The future is a we or it isn't. When the next headline lands, breathe once and open your pocket guide. Which cue, how long, how often, what fuel, what byproducts, what was integrated, verified, then place the claim on the ladder. Shot, shift, string, or line. Watch the dials we rarely print on posters. Outlet temperature, closed fuel loop, uptime, cost that bends with practice. Look for the rungs ahead, dated and named, and participate. Cheer when a team turns minutes into hours. Share when a paper releases data you can touch. Vote for factories that make the boring parts beautiful. Teach a student to love a gasket, a gauge, a graph that tells the truth on a bad day. The choir needs every voice. Some sing discovery, some sing delivery, both are music. The new fire will arrive the way dawn always does, slowly, then all at once. It will not crown a single hero, will credit a patient multitude. Welders and modelers, reviewers and operators, buyers who ask the right questions in rooms without cameras. If you have ever kept a promise, if you already understand the most important metric, showing up again and again until Tuesday becomes light, keep your lantern, keep your glass. Ask clearly, listen kindly, and let wonder last. We did not build a shortcut to morning. We are learning the road. Step by honest step, gate by gentle gate. And when a kettle somewhere sinks, because a small sun hums behind a fence, you will have helped it boil with questions that cared enough to keep the flame. Who keeps the jar lit at 3 a.m.? A human hand that knows the hum of relays, a human ear that hears a wobble and a whisper, a human eye that loves a steady green light. There are nights when the only stars awake are the ones we're trying to make. Someone is there to meet them with coffee and patience and the small brave yes of showing up. On the white table, a circle of brown rings maps of midnights already given. In the logbook, a thin handwriting, careful as a bridge across a stream. Between the pages, a pressed gasket, a reminder that perfection is elastic, that what does not seal today will learn tomorrow if we are kind enough to let it. In a hall that smells of frost and iron, magnet tape unspools like a rosary of hope, turn after turn, a prayer in copper and tin. Every click of a torque wrench is a footstep closer. Every epoxy cure is a held breath, every quench a lesson written in steam. We call these coils superconducting, but it is the people who conduct the miracle. Hands that will not rush, eyes that refuse to lie, voices that say, again, when again is the right word. Beyond the bright arena, softer crafts keep watch. Leak hunters walk with helium like lanterns, sniffing for the kiss of a ghost along a seam. Cryogenists sink to temperature, lower, lower until metal hums, in a blue hush and heat forgets its name. Metrology measures the width of a whisper, so a window sits where light believes it should. Cleanroom keepers are librarians of dust, indexing every mote that dares to speak above a whisper. Perfection here is not an act. It is a temperature, a pressure, a habit. Rival labs argue the way old friends do with maps on the table and hearts on their sleeves. Codes are shared like recipes. Preprints fly before press releases learn to walk. A review can sting and still be a kindness. We disagree to agree on the truth, sharpening edges without cutting the hands that hold them. Stellarator, Tokamak, compact dream, baroque, twist, different songs, same choir. Rivalry is a whetstone. Fellowship is the blade that actually cuts. There is a museum of wrong turns, and we visit it often. Burnt tiles are pinned like medals. A cracked window stands in a glass case of humility. On the wall, a checklist titled "Do Not Repeat," and underneath, dozens of signatures we were here. We learned this. We leave it for you. Failures are not gravestones. They're mile markers on a road that keeps going. We fail forward, and we sign our names to the lesson. When the shot fails, silence thickens, and then someone says, softly, "Okay." The night crew stays another hour. A bolt is loosened because it was tightened too proudly. A cable is rerouted with the gentleness of a second try. Before the sun climbs the scaffolds, the machine is kinder than it was at dusk. This is a discipline that transforms apology into craft. Why such care? Because this fire is for things that matter. Clean baseload, to braid with wind and sun, so dark still nights are not a scold. Heat for steel without smoke, cement without sorrow, ships that cross oceans on a silence we can live with. Fresh water pulled from salt like a kindness, not an exception. Hospitals that do not shiver in January. Green ammonia, ferrying summer into winter. Hydrogen when the wind is asleep. Not sermons, services. You are not outside this story. If you have ever kept a promise, you already speak uptime. If you have ever fixed what you could not replace, you already know remote maintenance. If you have learned a recipe by doing it twice, you already understand why second of a kind is kinder than first. Fusion needs poets and plumbers sometimes in the same person. It needs teachers who can turn caution into appetite, technicians who can make a gasket feel like destiny, coders who can coax a model into saying, "I don't know," and mean it. Between a gasket and a galaxy stands a person who cares. There are on-ramps everywhere, apprenticeships that smell like oil and skill. User facilities that will give you a badge if you bring good questions and clean shoes. Open source codes where a new test makes old wisdom clearer. Safety and standards that seem like fences until you learn they are bridges that never collapse. Policy hands that know the price of patience. Calms minds who can make the public feel invited without making the truth feel smaller. Every morning before the hall flips its breakers, someone sets the table where records meet. Cross-lab stand-ups replace siloed pride. A common parts library keeps a dozen projects from buying the same bolt 12 different ways. Mentors gather in a ring and remember aloud, so experience does not evaporate between goodbyes. Kindness is a tool. Humility is PPE. Culture is infrastructure. It is cheaper than concrete and harder to pour. The refrain returns. Night crews and coffee rings. Rosaries of superconducting turns. Leak hunters with lanterns of helium. Cryogenicists nursing the blue hush. Metrologists weighing a whisper. Cleanroom keepers tending the alphabet of dust. The cheer when the plot holds steady. The quiet when a quench writes a new stanza. The nod when a checklist gets one line longer. Stars are patient. Listen, you stayed with this story. Patience is not passive. It is part of the solution. When future mornings are warmed by a caged dawn, kettles singing over wires that hum like well-kept promises, someone will read your handwriting in the steam. You were here. You learned this. You left it for us. Hold the ember. Share the light. Pass the recipe with the margins intact. We do not steal fire from the gods. We befriend it. We do not demand a miracle once. We make a technology on time. A miracle happens once. Technology happens every Tuesday. Who keeps the jar lit at 3 a.m.? We do. You do. A star is patient, so are we, in the morning. The morning is learning our names. Open your hands. Feel a cup of quiet warmth gathering in your palms. This is not stolen fire. This is the patient flame the stars have trusted us to hold. We walked from stellar cores to laboratory floors, from hymns of hydrogen to rooms of humming gauges, from guest to grit, from spark to discipline. Along the way, we learned a softer grammar of heat. How to raise a dawn without burning the day. How to make a furnace that remembers to be kind. Listen to the footnotes of the work. Night crews folding coffee rings into maps. Magnets wound like rosaries of hope. Welds that look like sentences. Clean. Complete. Every bolt tightened twice. Every number asked to tell the truth. Every failure given a chair, a pencil, and time to speak. We were never stealing from the gods. We were staying long enough to be introduced. We were learning the old names of light, pressure, and patience, density, and time, and how to pronounce them without shouting. What begins as brightness becomes belonging. What begins as theory becomes Tuesday. A Jar of Starfire learns the manners of a city. A sunrise consents to a schedule. We make a vow in the language of work. To light a flame that warms without wounding. To blue the skies that hold our breath. To sweeten rivers with snow turned back to water. To leave our children more mornings than we found. Let the pledge be plain. No miracles on demand, only competence on repeat. No thunder at the switch, only a hum that never lies. Let the measure be steady hands in ordinary days. A ledger that sings in black ink, kettle that boils because many kept their promises. Think of what this gentled fire can bless. Wind and sun, braided with a thread that does not snap at night. Steel without sorrow, cement without smoke. Ships that cross the map and leave the air behind untroubled. Fresh water pressed from salt for cities that thirst at noon. Hydrogen bottled from daylight to carry July into January. Hospitals that never guess. Servers that never shiver. Workshops where the lights stay kind. And when the room is empty and the plant is still, let safety keep its quiet watch. Every gram with an address, every path with a gate, every ordinary day allowed to stay ordinary. Let the metals that listen to neutron rain grow quiet and useful again. Let nothing we kindle outlive its welcome. There will be clocks we cannot hurry and costs we must count. There will be walls that learn to forgive and blankets that learn to give. There will be mornings when the dial refuses to move and evenings when a small green light says, try again. We will try again. Because we are many at this hearth, rivals who trade recipes like neighbors over a fence. Labs that share mistakes the way sailors share weather. Hands in many languages, one craft. On some future day, the first of a kind will finish its long song, and the second, the 10th, the 50th will begin to rhyme. Habit will replace headlines. Wonder will learn to keep a schedule. You are not outside this fire. You have been standing here the whole time. If you have ever kept a promise past the point of comfort, you understand capacity factor. If you have ever fixed what you could not replace, you understand maintenance at a distance. If you have ever learned a recipe by doing it twice and then again, you understand how miracles become methods. So keep the posture that brought you here. Keep watching, keep asking, keep tending the possible. Bring patience, bring craft, bring company, count the bolts, name the rivers of heat. Praise the ordinary worker and the ordinary week. Make the sunrise repeatable. We began in a furnace older than memory. We end at a table where the kettle sings. Steam writes brief letters on the window. In each letter is a signature, yours, mine, ours. Proof that the universe has learned a gentler way to be bright. Remember this line and take it with you. We are the species that teaches fire to be gentle. Not with conquest, but with care. Not with shouting, but with rhythm. Not once, but every day. And if tomorrow, someone lifts a mug of tea warmed by a caged dawn, they will be reading your handwriting in the rising curl, your quiet courage in the power that arrived like morning, slowly, then all at once. This is cosmic canvas, where the universe is not only studied, but painted in meaning. Until next time, keep asking, keep looking up, and never stop wondering.